Yo guys, it's your boy Dylan, and today we're going to be predicting Week 10 of the National Football League season for 2024-25. Now, before we go any further into Week 10 predictions, we're going to be predicting all 14 games because there are 4 teams that are on bye, which are the Browns, Packers, Raiders, and the Seahawks. And what we'll do is this week, for the second segment, we're going to change things up a little bit. We're going to do 5 teams that their season is basically done for, but 5 teams that are already sniffing at the playoffs. So, without further ado, let's begin with the Bengals versus Ravens. Bengals trying to keep, I would say they're trying to keep they are basically trying to keep their season alive against the Ravens, which the Ravens, they are 6-1 since that 2-game losing streak that they went on to start the season. The Ravens, they're just rolling right now. Derrick Henry's the first running back this year to 10, he's above that, like 11 rushing TDs. Derrick Henry has been doing really good in the last couple weeks. I do think the Ravens are going to beat the Bengals. This will be a game that the Bengals will be tripped up, and it may even hurt their playoff chances a bit as we're in the second half of the season. With this next game, this is actually a Germany game, which is the Giants and Panthers. And NFL, if you're watching this, can you get better matchups? Because it's Giants and Panthers. It's both teams that have 2 wins on the year. But the Panthers, they were able to get away with their second win in the year before the first half of the season came to an end. So, hey, at least the Panthers have 2 wins, That means they matched last year's win total of 2-15. I do have a little bit of confidence that they will get above 2 wins. They'll probably get 3 or 4. Let's say I have them winning their 3rd game right in Germany, beating the Giants in Week 10. Moving on to the Patriots and Bears. I am watching out because the Bears, I would say they looked really good, but they looked good at first. They were 4-2, but ever since that bye, they've been losing a bit often. But the Patriots, I believe they're right back to their losing ways. But I am going to be going with the Bears to take it home for Week 10. And they're going to get right back on the winning column. And they're going to improve to a 5-4 record. They're going to get right back above 500. Moving on with the 49ers and Bucks. 49ers, they were, I believe last week, they were on the bye week. So 49ers, that gave the whole roster a bit of rest, a well-needed rest after early this season. They kept getting banged up with injuries and that, but they've been getting those players back. But again, that bye week last week was definitely a week where the players could rest and get prepared for the second half of the season. As to where the Buccaneers, unfortunately, they're on a 3-game losing streak. What I believe they were originally 4-1 has turned into back to 500. Unfortunately, as much as I don't want to say this, I'm saying the Buccaneers are going to drop 4 in a row, and they will ultimately decline back below 500. I wouldn't say they're back below 500. They'll be below 500 for the first time this year, ultimately resulting in the 49ers to take home the victory. As to where we have the Broncos and Chiefs. The Broncos, unfortunately, they did lose Week 9. As to where the Chiefs, Mahomes, he scared us for a second. Around third, fourth quarter, Mahomes, on one of his passing TDs, he injured himself. And the reason why I'm putting it in quotation marks is he injured himself. Then he was able to walk. Well, medical had to walk him off the field. But then, as the seconds went on and all that, Mahomes was actually able to walk fine. And he went to the medical tent, and when he came out of the medical tent, he was actually jogging, and we thought Carson Wentz was going to be the quarterback for the rest of the game, but Mahomes was all right. Mahomes, nothing too serious happened to Mahomes, and with that, Mahomes was able to get in an overtime victory, Mahomes was able to get the Chiefs their 8th win of the year. But for Week 10, I am going to be going with the Chiefs again, because, the Broncos, I'm not going to cut the Broncos out in this one. I think the Broncos are not a horrible team, but I do think they will go back to 500, and with the Chiefs clinching a winning season in Week 10. Moving on to the Bills and Colts. Fortunately, the Colts lost last week, which happens. They're back below 500. They're now 4-5 on the year. As for the Bills, they just keep on rolling. They have won 4 in a row since that 2-game losing streak that they were on. I'm saying they're going to go 8-2 with the win over the Colts. As to the Steelers and Commanders, the Commanders, they're another team that they just keep on rolling. They're actually 7-2. I know I don't want to spoil too much because what I could do is I could even save it for our next segment of the video, but they're 7-2 for the first time since the 1996 season. This is probably going to be their best season in a long time if they can keep this up. As for the Steelers, they're not doing that bad as well. 6-2, but I do think they're going to fall to 6-3, ultimately resulting for the Commanders to improve to an 8-2 season. Moving on to the Vikings and Jaguars. This one is probably easily going to be, for me, it's probably going to be going to the Vikings just because the Jaguars, at the start of the season, I wanted to see a lot from the Jaguars, and we have definitely not seen that yet. So, unfortunately, I'm going to be going with the Vikings to take it home. Well, they're not going to be at home, but they're going to be taking the victory. And the Jaguars will continue to fall backwards. As for the Vikings, they'll improve to a 7-2. Moving on to the Falcons and Saints. Same thing with the Saints. I was expecting a lot out of them. I'll explain both the Jaguars and the Saints in the next segment of the video. Not to spoil anything, not to spoil them being on the video, but just saying, they did fire their head coach, but I'm not sure if that's even going to do anything. I'm going to go with the Falcons to improve to 7-3. Falcons probably in the middle of having one of their best seasons in a while. I would not be surprised with the Falcons this year. They could be a playoff contender this year. Moving on to the Titans and Chargers. The Titans are another one of the remaining one-win teams from last week that got their second win of the year. But the Chargers, we'll have to see how the Chargers play in Week 10. But, knowing that they're playing against the Titans, the Chargers are probably going to take home the victory here in Week 10. Moving on to the Jets and Cardinals. Cardinals, they're hanging in there in first place. They're 5-4 in first place after the half. So maybe the Cardinals, they could actually be a contender this year. I would not be surprised. I mean, the Jets, on the other hand, well, they got their third win of the year last week against the Texans, but let's be real. I'm going to go with the Cardinals for Week 10. Jets, after taking that win, they will continue to decline. For I know the Jets, they could win this game as well, but for me, I think the Cardinals could be one of the other surprise teams of this season. Moving on to the Eagles and Cowboys. Cowboys, I got 2 bad news for you. 1, you're on a 3-game losing streak. You're 3-5. That could have been number 2. So with that, number 3, Prescott's going to be out for several weeks. That is basically, I'm not surprised that that's probably going to be the final nail in the coffin on the Cowboy season. I know we just got through 9 weeks, but let's be real here. Do you really think they're going to do good under Cooper Rush? I mean, they could, but with the Eagles, Commanders, and Falcons coming up, I think they already played the Falcons. They play against the Texans, but still, I think the Eagles are going to take home the victory, and the Cowboys will continue to collapse to a 3-6 record. Cowboys, things are not looking too bright there in Dallas right now. Moving on to the Lions and Texans. This is probably going to be one of the best matchups of the week. This is Sunday Night Football. And Detroit, 7-1 on the year. As for the Texans, they did get tripped up in Week 9, ultimately them falling to a 6-3 record. I'm saying with Week 10, I have the Lions winning. Lions, they're another team that they are doing really good right now, but I think for the first time this year, the Texans are going to lose back-to-back games in around mid-season play. And then for Monday Night Football, we have Dolphins versus Rams. And since Tua Tagovailoa's comeback, things have... I mean, we've seen close games, actually. But they're 0-2 since Tua Tagovailoa has come back. But the Rams, I mean, they kind of are starting to get their players back from injury. So, unfortunately, I think the Dolphins are going to be going 0-3 with Tua Tagovailoa coming back, and the Rams will take home the victory, and the Dolphins will continue on their further decline. Now, here are 5 teams that I think their season is over from the get-go, and 5 teams that are already sniffing at the playoffs. So, I'm going to start with the season over, because some teams, we need to get some teams out of the way. And honestly, all these teams that I have listed are like 2-win teams. And we've actually have more than that. But here's what I'm going to list off for teams that their season is basically a piece of toast that's crumbling. The first team I have is the Patriots. They started the season with the win. I mean, that's kind of a shocker. But then they went on like a 6-game losing streak. Then they finally got a win, and things have not been great since. Next team, Jaguars. Like I said, I expected more out of the Jaguars than this 2-6, 2-7 disaster, than this 2-6 disaster that they're in right now. Things are back to suckage in Jacksonville in terms of the Jaguars. The Browns, they did win, week 8, but week 9 was another loss, making them decline to a 2-7 season, and the Browns, their season's basically over. The Panthers, like I said, they were able to get their second win, but don't expect them to be back in the playoffs for a while. And the Saints, I believe his last name's Allen, their head coach. He, after 7 straight losses from the Saints, for those that don't know, the Saints, they started off 2-0, but ever since then, it's been 7 straight losses, and the Saints have fired their head coach, and let's hope things are for the better, but unfortunately, I think things are only going to be for the worse, and I don't think they're going to get better anytime soon, unfortunately. So, I had to break the news to you, but like I said, I don't think things are getting any better anytime soon. Moving on to the teams that are potentially looking already into the playoffs. Let's just get the obvious out of the way. The Chiefs. At this point, if they're able to win 2 consecutive more games, you might as well just give them a playoff spot. At this point, you might as well just give them the playoff spot when they win on this week coming up against the Broncos. Or the Broncos, they could put them in a trap and they could make the Chiefs go 8-1. But we'll see what happens. The Bills started off. I think the Bills are one of the teams that, in my opinion, have kind of surprised me, because the Bills, they started 3-0 undefeated, then they lost 2 in a row, but ever since then they're 7-2. The Lions have actually been, they're another team that they're kind of already sniffing the playoffs. They're 7-1. They're already almost to 9 wins there. So that's that with the Lions. The Steelers, the Steelers are another team that have kind of surprised me a bit. Yes, they have 2 losses, but they've been doing it, with the duo of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. So I'd like to see that keep going. But the team that I think is sniffing the playoffs, that I'm actually shocked the most, is actually the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, he's just doing phenomenal out there. Dan Quinn, he's doing phenomenal out there, and I think Dan Quinn, in my opinion, is probably one of the biggest reasons. My biggest 2 reasons is Jaden Daniels, and Dan Quinn is probably the biggest 2 reasons on why in my opinion, on why I think the Commanders are 7-2 where they're at right now. So, with that'll do it for our Week 10 predictions. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. If you guys want to subscribe to our channel, then smash the subscribe button. Punch that subscribe button. Smash that like button. Comment if you want to see something else. Comment who you think is going to win Week 10. Comment who you think the season's already over. Because trust me, there's more teams that have 2 losses. Like the Dolphins, the Raiders. There's actually several 2-win teams right now. So we'll see what happens in the near future. But until then, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.